Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well today. It is Thursday, the 23rd of January. This is episode 321 of Fantasy Sports Day. That's a lot of sports. It's a lot of shows. And I don't know, Justin Fetchman's been helping us out on Wednesdays a lot here. So I'm going to say, 300 of those shows are got Ray Flowers on them, something like that. So it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you've enjoyed the time here with us for this free show. Again, Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Got a little thing on my microphone. Yeah, there we go. Now we're fixed. That really mattered to the quality of the sound, so I had to fix it. Again, I'm Ray Flowers of FG. You can follow me on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere basically at the Ray Flowers. You can find me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday on Fantasy Sports Daily. Again, Justin Fensterman hosts on Wednesdays. So Monday through Friday, we're here at about 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We usually go about an hour, and we have some fun. We can take your comments, your questions, your thoughts. We visit with guests. Today is a Thursday, so we'll talk to Tyler Buecher here in about a half an hour. You can always go to FantasyGuru.com and sign up for any of the products. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Have at it. You can get the baseball product, the football product. You can get all the products if you want. All the sports we cover. Everything's available right now at FantasyGuru.com. You get Discord access to all those rooms. You get access to all the podcasts and the live streams and the articles and all of that. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can also send a note, support at FantasyGuru.com. Support at FantasyGuru.com. Jeff Mans is back rocking and rolling on the Elite Sports Show. That's Monday through Friday on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I was lucky enough to be on this week on Monday and Wednesday. So I was on a double duty this week. But I'll return next week to my just Wednesday, 3 to 6 Eastern Time appearance. That's why I'm not here on Wednesdays. I'm doing that show 3 hours a day over at SiriusXM. Just before we get into today's show, just a little, hey, this is where we're at kind of thing. Jeff Mans and I doing some discussions the last couple of days and had a long talk yesterday about kind of what the plan is at FantasyGuru.com for the baseball season. And we came up with a plan that's pretty interesting. I've already talked about we're doing things a little bit differently this season with the preseason product. I think we're going to do things a little bit differently in the in-season product as well. So really looking forward to that. We'll obviously have way more details as we get closer. It's still January. We got 2 full months until the baseball season starts. Almost exactly. I think it's the 27th of March. So we got 2 full months, but we're going to have some new things this year over at FG. So hopefully you'll join us again. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can join the club, the crew, the largest active community in fantasy sports. Become part of the winning solution. I don't know. I'm just going to keep saying. Join us at FantasyGuru.com. What are we talking about today? Let's throw it up on the screen. John G, by the way, says, listening in the office, so no yelling, please. I don't plan to talk about the Dodgers today, John. So I don't think there'll be any yelling. You never know what might happen in the next hour. Maybe the Dodgers will do something else. Maybe they'll make a trade for Aaron Judge. I don't know. But I don't plan on yelling today. Doug M, do thumbs up help you, Ray? They absolutely do. Everything helps. Passing along a link, telling a friend, post it in the chat room, clicking a thumbs up, all that stuff helps. Yeah, especially on YouTube because we can monetize the product a little bit, which is nice because, again, we're doing this for free. So, yeah, every little bit helps. And, the more revenue we take in, a lot of companies take the revenue in and they put it in their pockets. We don't really do that at FantasyGuru.com. We're, to toot our own horns, we're a very successful business. And we do a very good job of reinvesting the money we do make into creating new products, bringing on new staff, that kind of thing. So yeah, any little thing you can do helps, Doug. I appreciate that. Thank you for asking. Today, what are we doing? As you can see there, we're going to do some MLB news and notes. We're going to get to this on Tuesday. And didn't really get a chance to because the Dodgers made that move in the bullpen when they brought in Kirby Yates. And so I got sidetracked and then we talked football and all that. So we'll do that a little bit more today. We'll talk a little bit about, young guys like Winn and Walker, veteran players like Bregman and Suzuki. We'll talk a little bit through that. Bullpens, pitchers, all that kind of stuff. As I hinted at, in about 25, 30 minutes from now, Tyler Buecher will join us and talk a little bit about the Bears and their new head coach, Ben Johnson. What does that mean? The NFL going to an 18-game season? What does Tyler think about that? We'll see if he has an answer to what happened to Cooper Kupp. He did kind of show up in the last game of the season. Now we're hearing he wants to keep playing, but we don't necessarily know if it's going to be with the Rams or not. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk this weekend's playoffs. We got a couple of games left. Obviously, Tyler's got that huge Gamescript article that comes out at fantasyguru.com. So we'll get some early takes on that. The article is massive. It's fantastic. It's got so much data in it. And you can tell when Tyler comes on, he knows what he's talking about. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll also talk about some of the players this week, particularly in the backfield. If you're doing any kind of fantasy playoff, especially the one and done format, do you play Saquon Barkley this week, knowing that the Eagles probably win this week, or do you save him for the World Series, save him for the Super Bowl? Do you go James Cook this week, or do you save the guys on that side and play Barkley this week? And then finally, who do you play if you're not playing Barkley and Cook? Because there ain't really much of an answer there, is it? The Commanders have a shared backfield. The Chiefs have a shared backfield. We'll talk to Tyler about that here in about 25 minutes. All right, so let's start out the baseball talk here. Carlos Estevez is interesting because Carlos Estevez is somebody that I don't think anyone thinks is an elite closer. Clearly, no one thinks that. He's still a free agent. So is Kenley Jansen, though. But Estevez is somebody that has, when given an opportunity, has been successful in the ninth inning. The game is kind of volatile with him, and he's not a young guy. He's in his mid 32, I guess, or that's early 30s technically, which is so funny to say because I'm so much older than that now. It's weird. For those of you that aren't there yet, it's very weird when you get to the point that you're older than the players. And it gets kind of hard to start wearing jersey. Like, am I going to wear a jersey of a guy that's 26 and I'm 50? So it gets a little strange, but 32, he's in his early 30s. He is a live power arm, and ideally, Estevez would be somebody that, an upper division team doesn't want him to close. They'd want him as a setup man. A lower division team, the team looking to cut some corners, maybe do a budgetary thing like the Cubs. Okay, maybe Carlos Estevez makes sense there. The Cubs apparently were in on the Tanner Scott bidding. They got outbid. The 472 went to Tanner Scott to go to the Dodgers. By the way, part of the draft guide over at fantasyguru.com includes that free agent piece. You go to the homepage, fantasyguru.com, scroll down a little bit, look for the blue box, and that'll give you the link to the homepage for the MLB draft guide. That lists all the articles. We update that daily, and that'll show you where the free agent, story is. And the free agent article is basically just, hey, this is where they signed, this is how much they signed in like one sentence on some expectations there, just to familiarize yourself with some of the player changes because there have been a lot, and there still will be more to come. Blue Jays, Reds, Phillies, Yankees, and Red Sox have all also been rumored to be in Estevez, and Estevez value now goes up because Tanner Scott's off the board. So it's, and again, I'm not looking directly at it. I probably should be looking at it, right? Let's do that, Ray. Let's do what you're telling people to do. Let's look at the free agent signings. We've got Estevez and Kenley Jansen in terms of closers. What other high-end relievers are available? David Robinson is available. Sean Armstrong. You know what I mean? So we're getting to the point where there's only a handful of these guys left that are free agents. Craig Kimbrell, I guess, for somebody that wants to hopefully rekindle that fire after last season's disastrous effort where he lost velocity, and that just doesn't really work for him. So Carlos Estevez, somebody's coming up. Angela, you say Helsley. Helsley's not a free agent, unless I'm mistaken. Let me check that to be sure. I don't believe he might be on the trade market, but I don't believe he's a free agent. He is not a free agent. So Halsey might be on the free agent. He might be on the market for trade, but he's not a free agent at this point in time. Okay. Next up, Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman is apparently asking for a boatload of money. We've heard reports of $175, $200 million. Alex Bregman has long been one of my favorites because he's somebody that usually isn't overly expensive and he's productive. Is he a superstar in the fantasy or the real world? Absolutely not. Is he a star? Not in fantasy. In the real world, probably not either. So it's trying to get $200 million for Alex Bregman. That's probably one of the reasons why he's still a free agent. I think almost every team in baseball would love to have him on their squad. And he's very predictable. He's very steady. There's been some odd swing changes he's enacted the last couple of years. Seems like he's finally got his game back after some wonkiness there. He's the quintessential, 255, 25, 80 guy who has a 350 on base percentage. Like, he's just a really good offensive player. Solid third baseman, but there's been a lot of talk about teams such as the Red Sox potentially signing him and putting him to second base, with the idea being that really Bregman, he plays third base because it's Jose Abreu. That was also a guy in the Astros, but I'm talking about their second baseman, who I'm drawing a complete blank on. Why am I drawing a blank on Jose Altuve? Jeez, I didn't even drink last night. Jose Altuve, second base. Obviously, Bregman's been at third because of that. So there's been teams that are saying, well, we'd love to sign Bregman and might even use him at second base, which would be great in the fantasy space, right? Because that would give him dual position eligibility. The Astros are saying that they would still consider adding Bregman, which is a little strange because they added Isaac Paredes to basically play third base. They added Christian Walker to basically play first base. Like, they still have Altuve. They've got Jeremy Pena at short. Like, where does Bregman play? Do they put Paredes at DH? I don't know. So, I mean, there's still room. They could make it work, but it is odd since they signed a first and a third baseman that they'd still be in the mix. Not many options available left for Bregman if he wants to get that huge contract. We'll see. I believe Scott Boras is his agent, if I'm not mistaken, and we know how that goes. Boras usually gets his clients their money. But Bregman, this is something we've seen a lot. We saw it with Blake Snell. We saw it with Jordan Montgomery. If I'm a player, I'm not, I want $200 million. Someone offers me 185, I'm taking 185. I'm not going to wait until March to sign a contract and then rush to get ready for the start of the season and rush to, what am I going to do with my family? Where am I going to live? I wouldn't do that. That's me. I also think what's the difference between 185 and $200 million? A lot of people don't think that way. Hopefully Bregman will get signed soon and we'll have that situation cleared up. There will be a article kind of, what did I term it? Last year's, no, it was, I'm having a hard time talking this morning. It was something, what was the actual term? Let me pull it up again. Geez, Ray. It was basically talking about post-type sleepers. There we go. Really big term that apparently is hard to remember. Jordan Walker's in that piece. And there was a report yesterday, and I had Jordan Walker in the piece before this report came out. But he's been working with Brant Brown this offseason to try to get back to his original swing. And this happens a lot with youngsters like Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker comes to the big leagues with the expectations of being a 2020 guy. If you remember a couple years ago in the fantasy space, just like Wyatt Langford last year, he was being drafted to be a 2020 guy. He was being drafted to be a star as a rookie. Didn't happen. He ended up getting demoted and all that kind of stuff. Now, he's been solid to date as a major league player. Let's not forget he's 22 years old. Like, a lot of players never saw the big leagues by the time they were 22 years old, right? So he's been fine, but he has not been anywhere near the expectations. One of the problems that Walker had was that he didn't lift the baseball. We say this all the time, and it's generally true. Players, as they age, generally learn to lift the baseball more. They get stronger, they get more confident in pitch recognition, pitch selection, all these kind of things. They know more of their swing, their body, what they can and can't do, et cetera, et cetera. Jordan Walker tried to get more loft, and he did get a little more loft. He's in that, Vlad Guerrero zone of, 10% launch angle, which it would be nice if it was a little higher, but it's fine. That's better than the 1% angle he was getting at the start of his career. I guess he kind of lost himself here, and this happens a lot. This youngster's responding to the criticism and responding to the fact that he got demoted for it, so he tried to address it. So he's being proactive. Good for him. Yeah. So he said that he didn't make enough contact in 2024, did Walker, and he wanted to return to the swing that he had basically when he came to the big leagues. And this will be really interesting to see what happens, because if that launch angle goes back down to 5%, maybe he hits 285. Right? Maybe the batting average comes up and maybe he only hits 17 home runs because he's just not lifting the ball. Would we take 285-17 over 250-21? Sure. So, he's a young guy. Don't forget him at all. Again, he's 22 years old. He's got a chance to be part of the daily lineup with the Cardinals. And again, post-type sleeper, all that kind of stuff. He fits into that, and he's definitely someone you should be thinking about on draft day, because the price right now is okay, but it's starting to creep upward in ADP, and that's something we'll have to keep an eye on here in spring. Going back to the scenario with the Cubs, we mentioned them earlier with Estevez. Seiya Suzuki is going to have to DH this year, and I guess in the past, Suzuki has not wanted to sit in that role, which I understand. I mean, you spend your whole life as the best player on the field. Seiya Suzuki was always the best player on the field from childhood, right? I don't know his background specifically, but he probably pitched at some point. He probably played shortstop at some point. He's batting third every day. The best player on the field. Best player on the field doesn't DH. The guy that DHs is the guy that can't field, or the pitcher that's not pitching that day, right? So a lot of guys don't like doing it. A lot of guys didn't do it. A lot of players have a very difficult time staying connected to the game if they're not playing defense. It would be very weird. I never filled a DH spot. Of course, when I played, boy, I don't know if we ever even had the DH when I played. I don't think we did. I think it came after I got out of high school, but it would have been bizarre to be a DH for me. I don't know how I would have handled it or not because I was so involved defensively as a leader. I was out there talking, doing all that stuff. Some guys just can't ever adjust to it. So a lot of it has to do with the mind piece of it too. It's not just hitting a fastball or a slider. It's can you mentally handle the role of DH? Previously, he hasn't wanted to do it. Well, this year he's likely going to have to do it. Ian Happ is going to be out there in the outfield. He's a good defensive player. Crow-Armstrong is a really good defensive player. And then they brought in Kyle Tucker. So Suzuki's going to have to see time at DH. So that'll be a storyline to follow. Theoretically, it would help him stay in the lineup more consistently, which has been an issue for him, theoretically. Now let's hope he can adapt to the changes that are necessary to have success in that role, because it is a completely different role. Speaking of Pete Crow-Armstrong, I know he was a rookie last season. I mentioned that because I was working through the rookies yesterday, the rookie player profiles. I'm looking at the schedule here. So I'm going to have next week, early in the week, we'll be looking over at fantasyguru.com at head-to-head. So we'll have some articles talking about the head-to-head game, what it is, how to do it, and all that kind of stuff. Then we're going to talk about the top 50 rookies one day in fantasy this year, the rookie hitter scouting reports, the rookie pitcher scouting reports. So I'm just wrapping those up right now. I think it's 6,000 words of rookie writing, and then the rankings. So that'll all come out next week. The next couple of days this week, pitcher workload article just went up today. Pitching age and the ideal performance. Who kind of fits the age and performance stuff? We'll talk about that tomorrow at the site. We've got velocity changes and then those post-type sleepers that we were talking about. So that's what's coming out. Again, next week, head-to-head, and rookies next week. Really excited next week for the rookie stuff. I know all of you are probably looking forward to reading that because who doesn't love rookies? Speaking of rookies, Masyn Winn was a rookie last year. And Masyn Winn is somebody that has speed. And he has stolen a base at the minor league level. And he was expected to come to the big leagues. And I think it was reasonable to look at his scouting report and everything and think this guy could steal 20 bags at the big league level. You look at his minor league performance in 2022, he stole 60 bases. In 2022, he stole 43 bases. In 2021, he stole 32 bases. Okay, so, he can run. And so again, 20 steals, I think, was kind of what we were hoping for. Last year, he had 11, was caught 5 times. The success rate wasn't very good. I think that what happened is he was at the bottom of the order to start the year, and then he got moved up to the top of the order, and he kind of didn't run as much. So again, he stole 32 and 43 bases in back-to-back seasons in the minors. He came out over the weekend and said, I want to steal 30 to 40 bases this year. Would I bet on that just because he said it? Obviously not. The number one thing for him is he's got to get on base, right? And, he did a league average job of that last year. He hit 270, but he had a league average 314 on base percentage. Got to pick up the walk rate a little bit. The walk rate was higher in the minors, so we consistently saw him not only have a better batting average, but we saw that on base percentage being in the 350 zone. That's big for guys that run, obviously, right? You got to get on base to run, duh. I think it's reasonable to look at Winn and say 20 steals would be a good goal this year. The 30 to 40 thing will catch people's attention. If he steals a couple of bases in spring training, people will remember him saying he's going to steal 30 or 40 bases. Again, I'm not ruling it out, but it's not what my expectations would be. He's a sneaky player, though, because, if he goes 15-20 and he hits at the top of the order, he scores 90 runs, he basically becomes a Tommy Edman performer. Is that doable for him this year? Yeah, it is. So he's someone to dream on, and the cost isn't overly expensive for Masyn Winn at this point. For those of you that were with me last year at fantasyguru.com and on this show, we talked a lot about Xavier Edwards. He was one of the bigger additions I made on my Tout Wars team. I'm in that Souls League that I was able to emerge victorious last year, and he was one of the main reasons that happened. He was he and Brenton Doyle were kind of my big moves that I made on the course of the season on the offensive side of things. And Xavier Edwards was special. It seemed like, and we bet on him a lot over at fantasyguru.com too. Go to FG, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner, and get signed up for the baseball package. We've got the seasonal baseball package, the DFS baseball package, and the wagering baseball package, all available right now. Obviously, the only one that's cranking out any material is the seasonal one, but you can get involved with the other two right now. You can buy one of them. You can purchase two of them. You can purchase all three of them. You get access to everything we do baseball. All these options are available. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. There were many times where, Xavier Edwards was in the bets of the day, because it's like there was a period of time for like a month where I'm only exaggerating when it seemed like when he was getting 1.8 hits a game. Like he was getting 2 hits every day, and he was stealing bases and all that. Now he's kind of was a post-type sleeper last year himself. A guy that everyone thought would be a base stealer and a batting average guy at the major league level. He's had a shoulder issue. Excuse me. He's had a shoulder issue. Let me take a sip of water here. Actually, it's tea. Sorry about that. He's been dealing with a shoulder issue for a few years. He doesn't have much power. I know that I saw a report when they were talking about him in the shoulder issue, and they said maybe he'll have more power because his shoulder's better. Maybe. What's he going to hit 9 home runs? Like, he's not a power hitter. He's not that guy. But his shoulder is better. He worked with a new throwing program in this offseason to improve his shoulder. The issue, I guess, has been bothering him for a couple of years. I've talked on this show about my shoulder issue. As you get older or as you deal with injuries yourself, you start to learn. Like I was thinking this the other day, I've got those couple of tears in my left shoulder, a couple of tears in my rotator cuff. There is zero chance, that I could play baseball right now with my shoulder. And if I was a pitcher, I'd have to have surgery. Like, there's no possible way I could throw a baseball, and it would even hurt to swing. So he's been dealing with it. Yeah, he could deal with it, Xavier Edwards, sure. But if his shoulder is messed up, does that impact his power? Sure, it does. Does it impact his ability to get the barrel through the zone? Sure, it does. Does it limit him when he's diving or sliding? Potentially. So this is really good. So he worked extensively with the guys at Driveline to improve things. We know we have to anticipate he's going to be throwing the ball harder because he went to Driveline. I don't think there's a huge takeaway necessarily here with Edwards, other than if his shoulder is healthier and stronger, his ability to be successful without wearing down is higher, right? Again, you're buying him for average and speed, the power piece. If he hits 9 or 10 home runs, that's great. Hit 328 last year in 70 games. Second best average in baseball amongst anyone that played 70 games. The only guy that was better was Bobby Witt. Going back to the Cubs, boy, I should have done these guys in order, shouldn't I? Should have cubbed up here. Sorry about that all. Craig Counsell, they're just starting to talk to media now, and we're a couple of weeks away from spring training really getting going and all that. And I guess they were talking to Craig Counsell, the media was, and they said, well, who's going to be your leadoff guy this year? And Counsell who has had tons of success as a coach, who seemingly always pushes the right buttons. He's very good at his job. He said, well, the obvious guy is Pete Crow-Armstrong, who we mentioned earlier. He's the obvious guy because he's fast. If it was 1991, Pete Crow-Armstrong would probably be the leadoff hitter for the Cubs. It's 2025. Doesn't look like he's going to be the leadoff hitter for the Cubs. Here's the quote from Counsell. There's no lineup decisions made, but frankly, gut says no PCA at the top to start the year, unquote. He then said, I think Pete could get there. He's a developing baseball player. We still want to get that right. That's the end of the quote. Pete Crow-Armstrong, again, at some point in his career, hits leadoff probably. And, you can hit leadoff with a 320 on-base percentage. You can do that. The problem for Pete Crow-Armstrong is that, he is a young guy with some holes in his game. He, hit 237 last year. He didn't walk last year. A 5% walk rate left him with an on-base percentage of under 290. No matter what year it is, a 290 on-base percentage in 1991 would have probably got you cut out of the leadoff spot. I mean, actually, I say that. Let me look up Vince Coleman. I don't remember. Did Vince Coleman walk at all? I know Ricky Henderson walked a ton at 400 on-base percentage. Did Vince Coleman walk at all? Vince Coleman, 8% walk rate, so almost league average. So, yeah. So there were some years where he was barely over 300, but Vince Coleman had years of 360, 340, 340, 350, 340. So, yeah, even Vince Coleman got on base. You can't be a leadoff hitter batting. You can be batting 230 if your on-base percentage is 330, but that's not the case with Pete Crow-Armstrong. Ian Happ is likely to open the year as the leadoff guy. They probably hit Kyle Tucker second or third, Suzuki second or third. We talked about this earlier. I think it was earlier this week, the Cubs batting order. But Pete Crow-Armstrong probably starts the year in the bottom third of the order, most likely seventh. So the good news there is that he's probably more inclined to run. You don't want to run into outs if Kyle Tucker's at the plate. You don't want to steal second base so they can walk Kyle Tucker, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing for his fantasy value. It will limit his ability to drive in runs or score runs. But if he scores 75 runs instead of 95 runs, but we get an extra 14 steals, who cares, right? So keep that in mind. But there's a chance he'll get up in the order at some point in the season if he improves his overall approach. But right now he's probably going to start in the bottom third. A guy that used to be a leadoff hitter that certainly can't do that role anymore, and a guy that really he's just hoping to stay in the big leagues at this point is Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson was that guy that was on the cusp of in and out of the lineup forever with me. I always talked about him every year and said, look, this guy hits 300 with 18 steals every year. But man, like I'm looking at the batted ball stuff, and it's like, woof. And he did it year after year after year, and then he just didn't. It finally caught up to him. He signed a minor league contract. That's how far he's fallen. He's 31 years old and he had to sign a minor league contract. He signed it with the Angels. He's an AL only play, Tim Anderson. He's not a mixed league guy. Zach Neto had surgery on his shoulder. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was his shoulder. Maybe I'm wrong there, but Neto had surgery. So perhaps at the start of the season, Neto won't be able to play defense. Perhaps he might even start the year on the injured list. We shall see. We're too early to know the answer to those questions. So the Angels did the smart thing. They brought in Tim Anderson, who they could turn to for a couple of weeks if they need it. But again, not someone to pay attention to if you're drafting anything other than the AL League. The situation with the Dodgers, I'm not going to yell, John. I'm not going to yell. The situation with the Dodgers is that, we heard the report from Bob Nightingale that Michael Kopech's shoulders or arms a little bit concerning, that he might miss the first month of the season. So the Dodgers went out and signed Kirby Yates. We heard yesterday from the GM, Brandon Gomes, of the Dodgers, that the concerns about Kopech's forearm are overblown. Now, Gomes did say that Kopech dealt with the forearm issue at the end of last season. Okay, so if there's anything he's dealing with his arm right now, months, literally, after he threw his last pitch, Mr. Gomes can say, hey, we're not concerned. They're concerned. Let's be honest. You can't take 4 months off and have your arm still be sore and feel good about that. Okay. Again, I have some experience with this. I've had tendonitis in my elbow. I had it for years. I did the Dow therapy where they jam it in your arm. I did therapy where they massage things. I did therapy where we did ultrasound. I took medicine for my elbow. Like I lived the life of having a part. And the only thing that really fixes it is rest. So if he's resting and the arm is still barking at all, we got a problem with Michael Kopech. Regardless, you've got Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates ahead of Kopech anyway. You've got Treinen, you've got Phillips. Michael Kopech went from somebody that was intriguing to draft in a mixed league to I don't even know why you're drafting him at this point kind of thing. So we'll continue to follow that storyline. But it sounds like the Dodgers are saying it's not concerning. We'll see. Speaking of the bullpen, Paul Sewald signed with the Guardians. Got a pretty good deal. 1 year, $7 million with a $10 million option. That's pretty good for a guy who's in his mid-30s now. So he can make up to $17 million in the next 2 years. Sewald, obviously, at times has been a closer, including last season. 84 saves in his big league career. He obviously goes to a place to die in terms of save outlook, behind the best or most prolific save man in baseball, in Emmanuel Clase. A good addition by the Guardians. Sewald now is not even draftable in a mixed league. Only sure he should be effective and pick up a handful of saves, but this is really more about the Guardians improving their bullpen, something that they're always looking to do, especially with the uncertainty with a lot of the young guys in their rotation. Speaking of that, let's go to the old end of things. Nolan Arenado still hasn't been traded. He's another one of these big name players that he's not what he once was, and that's understandable. Look at the birth certificate. Still a very effective player. He has expressed a desire, I guess, to be moved. He does have the ability to block trades, which he has done previously as a 10-year veteran. Still a solid offensive player, still a solid defensive player. Like, he's still good, but he's expensive. And the best days are behind him. And, the Cardinals had he and Paul Goldschmidt, and they're looking to get younger. So trading Nolan Arenado remains their top priority, according to John Mozeliak, the president of baseball operations, the guy that runs the show. Says their top priority remains to trade Arenado. So Arenado's getting moved. The question is where, what do the Cardinals do to fill in the hole with Arenado? Where does Arenado go? Because wherever he goes, he's playing every day. Who does he knock out of a job? That'll be a scenario we'll continue to watch very closely. And finally, before we talk some football with Tyler Buecher, just an update yesterday. Going back to the Cubs, this ended up being the Cubs discussion today. John Berti, the 35-year-old utility guy, super sub, infield, outfield. He can play a little bit here, a little bit there. Famously, I believe, led the league in steals a couple of years ago. He signed with the Cubs for a one-year deal, $1.3 million in bonuses on top of the $2 million salary he can earn. Nice addition for a major league team. Is he somebody that you can look at now and feel good about playing? Well, again, the outfield's Happ, Tucker, Suzuki, and Crow-Armstrong, not playing in the outfield. The infield includes shortstops Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner, and then third base is Matt Shaw. Maybe if rookie Matt Shaw doesn't hit the ground running, and he will be in the rookie reports that come out next week at fantasyguru.com. Remember, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. If Shaw isn't ready, Berti probably gives him some runway there. So Shaw's not ready. He has a rough spring. They demote him for a month and a half to find his stroke in the minor leagues. Berti could be their third baseman for a month and a half. Because remember, they don't have Patrick Wisdom at this point. They got rid of him in the offseason, or he left them in the offseason. So John Berti, a good signing by the Cubs, and gives them a little bit of backing there in case the situation with Matt Shaw, the youngster, doesn't go as expected with him hitting the ground running and producing for the club at the major league level. Okay, so that's our baseball talk for today. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk more baseball tomorrow at the start of the show. It's a Friday, so we'll talk football about halfway through the show with Russell Clay. It's a Thursday, and it's halfway through the show. Now it's time to talk football with Tyler Buecher. Tyler was on with us on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio last week. Again, the Elite Sports Show is Monday through Friday from 3 to 6. He was on there last week. He was on here this last week, and he'll be on this week again because Thursdays are Tyler days. Welcome to the show, Tyler. How are you today, bud?
Doing all right. Trying to stay warm here in the DC area. Our house is having trouble keeping up with the single-digit degree temperature that we woke up with. It's got the backup heater going here behind me, wearing a fuzzy hat, trying to stay warm, man. How are you doing?
So it's single digits. Wow. How much snow do you got, or is it just blazingly cold?
Just cold, yeah. We haven't had any snow added, I think, in about a week. But yeah, now we're up to like about 15 degrees outside, slowly warming up. Is
the central air, the heat just doesn't?
We're not. Yeah, I don't think we have the best heating unit. So
how are the windows? They double, triple paned at least, or are you getting?
No, they're not
does
double,
it matter
triple
at
paned.
that temperature? I don't know.
I don't know if it does, but it feels like it's going right through them.
Yeah. We have all that stuff in California for the sunlight, right? They put the film in there, but they're supposed to help with what is it? What's the Q rating, R rating? What is it? You would know, right? What's the rating of the heat thing? Do you remember, like for the protection, the boundaries for the walls? I'm trying to remember what it's called. I watch all these.
I forget off the top of my head.
Yeah, R rating, whatever the hell it is. Hopefully, it warms up for you, Tyler. I like the beanie. I actually sleep because. Too much information, but my partner loves to sleep as if we're in an igloo. So I don't have hair, and you lose like 15% of your heat through your head. So I usually sleep with like a sleeping cap on. So I sometimes think of wearing it on the show too, because it's like, hey, I got to keep the head warm. But thanks for powering through, and I'm glad the power's still on. That's hugely important. So glad the power's still on. R rating according to Chris. Okay. R rating is what it is. Regardless, thank you, Chris. You're here to talk some football, so let's do that. And before we dive into some of the matchups in these last couple of games that are left this week in the NFL, I want to get your thoughts on the Ben Johnson to Chicago move. Obviously, Ben Johnson comes from a blazing hot offense with the Lions. He gets a lot of credit for being inventive. And, you look at the weapons there, and there's a lot of them in Detroit. There's a few weapons in Chicago. Now, obviously, things are going to change in the offseason and all that, but good signing by Ben Johnson to Chicago. Does this make you feel good about Odunze and Williams in particular?
Yeah, I mean, he's been a highly coveted coordinator for quite a few coaching cycles now, where he's been on the hot seat for being a QB and an offensive coordinator ready to take that next step into head coach. Did he do the Lions fans a bit dirty here, going to a rival? Maybe. But I cannot blame a guy for going to an organization with a really highly coveted asset like Caleb Williams. Gets to work with a young dynamic quarterback, and based off his introductory press conference, it sounds like he really wants to build around the team's strengths. So he's not going to try to fit like square pegs into circle holes, like that kind of thing. I'm really interested to see what they do with Keenan Allen in his offseason. He went from being PFF's number 10 highest graded wide receiver in 2023 with the Chargers down to number 117 in his age 32 season. And we've seen the slot position being very, very important in Johnson's offense. Look no further than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And they need an X factor here, whether it's DJ Moore kicking inside, who had a really good 3.13 yards per route run in the slot last season in 2023, or someone new being added. I'm very eager to see what they do here. I think the offensive line will also be a point of contention too. So eager to see what they do, eager to see the coaching staff that Johnson assembles. And I like seeing a new guy in the bucket instead of some of these old retreads that we've seen time and time again.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. And we also, Jeff Nant's been saying this all year, like with Jaden Daniels too. It's like, get that offensive line fixed. You want to have a young quarterback be successful, get that offensive line fixed. And that clearly is something that they need to do with the Bears. Another big picture item, even a bigger picture item, is I think the inevitability. I always think Mr. Smith and the Matrix, it's inevitable. The NFL is going to 18 games. It's happening. Whether it's this year, that year, it's happening. Roger Goodell was talking about it again. You see that as a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it just it's the thing, so we'll just deal with it? Like they're talking 2 bye weeks, which I guess would extend the fantasy season, but make it more complicated. What are you thinking about this potential move to 18 games?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I mean, give me the old school tradition of what we had seen. I didn't even like the move to 17 games, so I'm definitely not going to like 18. But I think you made a good point there where the NFL Players Association needs to really go hard after 2 bye weeks for these teams. Get these guys some rest. Like the more games, the more hits that pile up. We're just subjecting these guys to so much violence. And I look back at some of the really, really good players that have ended their careers early on their own terms. I could see more and more players doing that, having shorter lived careers, but like really good small windows of excellence in lieu of just piling up the unnecessary hits that the NFL environment creates. I'm not a big fan of this whole situation, but it's a cash grab business, and the NFL never ceases to amaze in that department.
Yeah, maybe they'll have a week next year where they play all 7 days. Who knows, Tyler? Who knows? Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. There's a lot to talk about. We'll get to the playoffs in a second. One more question. We talked about Cooper Kupp before. I know the season's not over and you haven't done your full analysis on everything and all that yet. He says he wants to keep playing. Now, with the Rams, we don't know if Stafford's coming back. There is a line of thought that Kupp will play next year, but it won't be for the Rams. You gleaned anything here the last week with Cooper Kupp that leads you to think that whether he stays with the Rams or goes somewhere else, this could be a guy who did catch 5 passes the final game of the season. They finally got him back in his role. Could he be that guy next year, or is it he's kind of at that DeAndre Hopkins zone where it's like it's going to be sporadic from this point forward?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of the end has approached here for Kupp, who I'll say that he entered the league as an older prospect, age 24. He's already entering his age 32 season, but it's been years since that 2021 campaign where he's had that triple crown. And keep in mind the stat line from that season, 145 catches, 1,947 yards, 16 touchdowns. Ever since then, he's essentially halved that all 3 of his remaining seasons moving forward. 2022, 9 games played, 75, 8, 12, and 6. 2023, 12 games, 59, 7, 37, and 5. And then last year, this current past season, 12 games, 67, 7, 10, and 6. So nowhere near even the 1,000-yard mark. I don't know if this is telling us that he's cooked or that he's been hiding an injury this particular season. I imagine we'll finally find something out in these next coming weeks. If we do not hear anything that it was injury related, he will be on a short list of fade players for me where I have no interest in going to this team. We saw the baton really passed over to Nacua to close out the year, and I truly do believe he's their number one moving forward, where Kupp probably just an ancillary player at this point of his career. Just don't see it anymore.
Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. We just got an update, by the way, that North Carolina head coach Bill Belichick finally signed his contract, so he's not coming back to the NFL.
That's fun. That's
fun. That whole situation, I haven't really looked into it, but it's just bizarre to me. I know there's a family connection and everything, but isn't it just weird, Tyler? Does that make sense to you?
Does he have anything to accomplish in the NFL?
No.
I think this is just a new challenge. Really eager to see how he does in the recruiting path with that. But heck, I've been playing a lot of NCAA 25, and one of those traits that they actively try to push up is the pro potential of prospects making it to the league. I think Belichick has a great I'll say a great head step in that department, given the track record he's had with really good NFL players. But it'll be a fun thing to watch this offseason. Something new.
It's something new. And I mean, I've never been in the locker room with Bill Belichick, but I don't get the sense that talking to an 18-year-old kid is necessarily a strength. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but okay, we'll see how that goes. Hal's got a question here before we move on to the playoff games. Dennis Allen is being rumored to potentially go to Chicago as their defensive coordinator. Will Dennis Allen destroy the team culture? I'm not really sure what the question is. Is Dennis Allen a malcontent that I'm not aware of? Or is Hal asking this because Dennis Allen's teams don't necessarily have success? Is Hal asking this because he was on the Saints? I don't know. Do you have any strong feelings one way or the other with Dennis Allen?
I do not know. I would be surprised if he were to get that call, though. He had a very lackluster finish to the Saints. I do agree coordinator position is probably the better fit for him, but I don't know if people are excited about signing up for Dennis Allen.
They're probably not, and that name too doesn't help. Dennis Allen. So boring. So boring. Not Bill Belichick. Tyler Buecher is a great name, and he's with us every Thursday here on the show, Fantasy Sports Daily, about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. You write a huge article every week, the Gamescript article. You break everything down. I know you're still working on that. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the two games, Commanders, Eagles, and obviously Bills and Chiefs. I'm really interested on the Commanders, Eagles side. You do an X and O's comparison here, and I think it's hard to say that the Eagles aren't the better team. Now, that's not necessarily to say they're going to win. So what are you seeing here, your early review of this game? What are you seeing here? What's the key for the Eagles to win the football game? Is it just giving the ball to Saquon Barkley 30 times? Is it finally finding the passing game because they haven't really passed the ball effectively for almost 2 months, but the matchup sure says they should? What do the Eagles need to do to win this game, Tyler?
I think this game, and actually both games, to be honest, will come down to third and fourth down success rates and which teams are able to keep drives alive, which teams are able to finish drives with points, and whichever teams are able to limit turnovers. That sounds really vanilla and very basic, but I think it really comes into play here with these squads. We've seen Dan Quinn with the Commanders. He went for it on fourth down 5 times against the Bucs and 4 times against the Lions. This was a guy who went for it on fourth down, I think like 22 or 24 times in the regular season. To go for it 9 times in 2 games in the postseason really tells you how aggressively he's been playing. And hats off to him, man. He's been calling it well. Jaden Daniels getting him out on the outside on the perimeter where he has a check down or a run option has really just been fantastic. I'm curious to see how this game plays in terms of third and fourth down rates for both Washington and for Philadelphia. We know Philadelphia has that tush push, which is still going on. Jalen Hurts battling a knee injury. Very interested to see has the health of him as we get ready for this conference championship round. We saw last week where he opened the game with like a 55-yard touchdown early in the first quarter. I would love to see them try to get a run from him early in the game just to show that his knee is either A, good enough, or B, maybe it's fine, but it's enough for Washington to have that in the back of their mind on any kind of RPOs or plays like that. This game, I honestly think this is going to be a close game where I know a lot of people are saying the Eagles spread is the play. I don't mind taking a teaser and taking on Washington's side, really going on like the plus 12 and like thinking they don't get blown out by more than 10 points. If anything, I think the Commanders have a legitimate chance at winning this game. We submitted our staff picks for who we think wins this game. Well, every game. And I chose the Commanders. I think they pull off the upset here. We've never seen a rookie quarterback make it to the Super Bowl. Rookie QBs in these championship conference rounds are 0-5. That said, I really like what Daniels and Quinn are doing together as a package there. I think there's a good shot that with some of the injuries the Eagles have sustained, namely Nakobe Dean being out, really will help the run game. And Quinyon Mitchell, the round 1 rookie cornerback, he's currently limited right now with a shoulder injury. He exited the Rams game last week. If he cannot play, I think they're going to go right at Isaiah Rodgers a ton, who gave up gains of, I think it was 30 and 48 last week to Cooper Kupp and Demarcus Robinson. You never want to give up a 30-yard gain to Cooper Kupp, as we just referenced.
Right. What the Eagles consistently, their plan is seemingly going into every game, is we want our drives to last 7 minutes and we want it to be 11 plays. And so that's, so what do you see the Commanders doing? Because the Commanders had some success running the ball last week. That's not something they did a lot down the stretch. Had a couple of touchdowns for Brian Robinson. He ran for over 75 yards. Are they going to be able to run the ball in this game? If the Eagles are milking the clock, I guess if the game is close, they could. But if the Eagles have some success on offense, because the Commanders' defense, through the air in particular, if the Eagles are able to have that success, do you see the Commanders basically running a balanced offense? Do you see them leading a little bit more heavily on the pass? What's your early read on that?
Yeah, in games where they've been behind by 7 or more points, their pass rate goes from, I think, 54% up to like 61. So it's a minor uptick despite them being trailing in games. In fact, we saw this very situation play out in the Week 16 game where the Eagles raced out to an early lead against the Commanders. Jalen Hurts got injured, and then Kenny Pickett came in to close out the game. This was a game where the Eagles tallied 33 total points, and we saw the Commanders find a way in the second half to complete a lot of underneath passes. We saw some sprints from Jaden Daniels. I was really impressed when rewatching that game again. I watched it earlier this morning, just how the resolve of Jaden Daniels, and this guy just seems unflappable. I'm really, really eager to watch this game. I wish we didn't have to wait until Sunday, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I envision this team not getting out ahead of their skis. They're going to play their ball. They're going to play slow. They're going to try to adversely flip the possession thing around on Philadelphia, where I think the Commanders could also try to do some long sustained drives where they're going for it on third downs, fourth downs, and consistently trying to keep the Eagles offense off the field, where if they're able to play a lot of single high where they have that second safety come down with Jeremy Chin on Washington's side, they're going to set up the Eagles run offense for some boom bust capabilities. When they're able to cover their lanes and cover their gap responsibilities, there are going to be times where Saquon goes for 2 to 4 yards time and time again. But if he's able to make one guy miss, they're opening themselves up to that variability of a 50-plus yard run and Saquon just housing it. I think the game really comes down to how well Washington can bottle up Saquon. And if I were them, I would sell out to stop Saquon, force Jalen Hurts to beat you through the air, which you haven't seen him do in 6 to 8 weeks, and roll the dice that way. See how it plays out, taking your shots with Hurts.
Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. Let's talk about the AFC game, Bills-Chiefs. I think the conventional wisdom here is that Chiefs are a really good football team. They keep it close. They win everything by a field goal. They go home. They're kind of boring. They're kind of ho-hum. The Bills, the Bills to win this game, they've got to score 35 points, right? They got to push things. They have the more explosive offense. That's kind of the general point of view here. High-scoring game favors the Bills. Low-scoring game favors the Chiefs. Do you see it that way? And what are some keys for both sides of the football here with the Bills and the Chiefs on the offensive side?
Yeah, I do see it that way. I mean, historically, that's kind of what we've seen from each team in terms of their MO. If you're thinking the Bills make this a competitive game, I like the idea of taking the over on their 23.5 team total. Seeing them go for 24 or more points would make sense in a game that we see reaches its over. I will note that this game went, what was it? Where are my notes? Pardon me. 30-21. The Bills won in Week 11 against the Chiefs earlier this season. That game was in Buffalo. This one will be in Kansas City. Allen 0-3 in the postseason, straight up against Mahomes. So we'll see how that one goes in terms of the overall matchup. But we've seen Buffalo's offense. They've really just been far more conservative under OC Joe Brady relative to what Ken Dorsey brought to the game, which was their offensive coordinator a year and a half ago. Ever since that swap, it's been more run heavy. They've been leaning on more James Cook. And I think they're going to try to beat the Chiefs at their own game where it's ball control, long possessions, and try to. So I mentioned third and fourth downs being important in the other game. I think lack of turnovers is going to be the most important element in this matchup where we saw that really hamper the Baltimore Ravens last week. Hopefully Buffalo is able to learn something from that and mitigate any of those and try to get the road win here. I don't know. I think this is going to be a fun game too. Like both these teams have historically been very entertaining. We have got two of the best young playmakers in the AFC going at it. Let me think about it from Kansas City side. Like they're facing a Buffalo defense that rushes forward. They don't blitz a lot. They can definitely get going in terms of the pass game here. I like the matchups for Kelsey and for Xavier Worthy specifically. the Bills play a lot of too high, a lot of zone. They limit production on the perimeter. Like, they just are not giving a lot to the outside guys. So I think it's a bad spot for Hopkins, particularly. I'm eager to see if we see a mix of like man and zone. We kind of talked about this last Thursday where Sean McDermott had been very zone heavy, and he switched things up against Baltimore, where he played a bit more man coverage than they typically had. In fact, it was a 41% man rate. It more than doubled their season-long average. You don't usually see coaches like go out of that comfort zone. That was because Lamar had drastic splits, man versus zone. Mahomes doesn't really have the same drastic splits. He just kind of does well, doesn't do great this year, particularly against both. Again, long sustained drives. We're going to see Pacheco between the 20s. We're going to see Kareem Hunt finishing drives. I don't know. I kind of want to take the under in this matchup, but it feels like taking the under against two of the best quarterbacks in the league feels like a silly move. So I will probably just stay away.
You mentioned Hopkins and how you don't really like his matchup this week. And interestingly, coming into 2024, Hopkins and Amari Cooper, let's draft these guys. Let's play these guys every week. And things have changed. They've been traded and the whole thing. I mean, the Hopkins thing, all right, I get it, right? I don't really get the Cooper thing. And we've all talked about this. Like, I think the last two games he's played like a third of the snaps. Like, he's not even on the field. Like, I just don't understand. Even if he's lost a step or whatever, you look at the receiving core and it's like, Matt Collins is better. Like Curtis Samuel's he's a gadget kind of player. Keon Coleman, okay, but he's a rookie. Like, if you had to play the one and done game this week and you had to go Hopkins or Cooper, which way are you going? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the outside weapons for the Buffalo Bills, they've just been like guys on milk cartons. You mentioned the snap share for Amari Cooper. It's been under 40%, I think, in like 5 straight games. He's been under 40% in 3 straight, but under 40 in about 5. And then Keon Coleman, his catch totals are like 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. He's at least seeing snaps though. He's at the 75% snap share. So versus the veterans, give me the dice roll on Keon Coleman. DeAndre Hopkins, he's also taken the back seat with the emergence of Hollywood Brown now in the fold, where it's really been Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce, 1 and 2 as the route runners. And then a big teardrop in routes for what we've seen from Hollywood and Hopkins ever since the addition of Hollywood in week 16, I believe that's where the splits come in. So those are the guys we really want to target, Kelce and Worthy. But if we're looking for like Hopkins versus Amari Cooper, I don't have a strong take. In fact, I think the best answer is to avoid these two. If I had to pick one, I'll probably go with Hopkins. Just know, like, in the 3 full games since Hollywood's been active, he has an 8.6% target share.
Well, what about Brown? I mean, because the last couple of games of the regular season, he's out there, he's getting targets, he's catching balls, and last time he went into DeAndre Hopkins mode last game. And you mentioned Xavier Worthy, and you touched on Brown. Brown this week, maybe better than Worthy. I mean, excuse me, better than Hopkins or Cooper.
Yeah, he at least had doubled Hopkins in target share. But you're right, though. The divisional round disappearance is certainly a pause for concern. I would say the matchups of week 16 and 17 at least tell us that they're interested in using him. I can't say the same with any type of confidence with Hopkins. We haven't seen 7 and 8 target games for him back to back or whatever, and I think since he's joined. So I will be going with Hollywood as the preferred weapon of that trio. But again, he's a significant tier in terms of routes and targets below Kelce and Worthy. And if we're expecting the Chiefs team, which, listen, this team loves to pass. They're like consistently number 1 or top 5 in pass rate over expectation each of the last like 5 seasons or so. But relative to the previous seasons, this is the lowest pass rate we've seen from this collective group. So they will try to run the ball. A lot of that will be dink and dunks. We'll see some end arounds. We'll see some short, shallow passes. But Hollywood would be the one exception where I think we see some intermediate gameplay and some 50-50 balls on the perimeter where they need, on a 3rd and long, they need to go to someone. I like the shots that they take with him. So he would be my play. Just know that it's not a good matchup for anybody pass catching wise here.
Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. Let's talk running backs this week. Let's say we're playing a one and done like a lot of us are. You're looking at Saquon Barkley, haven't used him yet. You mentioned the Commanders could win this game. Do you play Saquon Barkley this week? Number one. Number two, is it Barkley and Cook and then pray? Like, do you have a good sense of what the Commanders backfield is going to look like this week, what the Chiefs backfield is going to look like this week? Or is this just the week if you're doing that one and done, hey, man, you got to consider using Barkley and James Cook and then just winging it in the final week in the Super Bowl? What do you think?
I think when I look at like how I envision the rest of the brackets playing out, I think the Chiefs win, and I'm unsure about the NFC. I think there's a little bit more ambiguity there, despite the spread being the larger one. It just feels like Kansas City's inevitable. Like, it just feels that way. What I will say is that if that's the case and we see Kansas City in the playoffs in the Super Bowl and the Eagles advance to the Super Bowl, I'd rather play Saquon Barkley in this matchup, knowing he's definitely going to win in that game script playing out that way. He'll be playing from ahead, and he also has a far softer matchup against Washington's run defense relative to Kansas City's run defense. Right. The Chiefs have a really good low number of rushing yards allowed to opposing backs. Much of that's being game script driven. There have been they were 15-1. They forced teams to opposing teams to throw against them until that final week 18 matchup where they just did not care. But I would be playing Saquon. He would be my number one back this week for any kind of one and done formats. Number two, I'd probably be looking at an eliminated team, which would be either James Cook or Austin Eckler. He would probably be my second option. I think Cook, really can't go wrong with. He's been just fantastic in terms of scoring touchdowns. Only Jahmyr Gibbs had more than him during the regular season. He had 18 to Gibbs 20. The explosive plays there, the yards before contact per attempt are there, the missed tackles forced per attempt are there. And we saw him score twice in the previous game against the Chiefs. He scored 2 touchdowns and he had 5 catches, I believe, 5 or 6 catches. So he has that dual threat skill set, which we really covet, which leads me to Eckler. I think we also covered that in him and his ability to pick up a lot of yardage and both rushing and receiving. We saw the pass catching skill set shine in, I think it was the first play from scrimmage from the Commanders last week. He cleared his receiving prop of 23 yards. Again, that's his prop again this week. So that's one of my favorite plays of the week. Here, let me give you guys a free bet.
There you go.
Go. Austin Eckler over 23.5 receiving yards if it's still available. I'd play it up to 25. Major reason being, the last time he played the Eagles, 8 catches, 89 yards. And now this team is without Nakobe Dean. This is a team that plays a lot of zone, a lot of cover 4, a lot of cover 6. So they naturally step backwards in their coverage schemes, allowing a lot of space underneath for outlet receivers. I really like Eckler as a PPR play on DraftKings specifically, talking about some DFS as well. Really underpriced, like $5,300, I believe is his price tag right now. So I like the idea of a Saquon-Eckler combo where both backs are kind of game script agnostic, given their abilities to play well. And we've just seen an absolute fall off from Brian Robinson to the point where Jeremy McNichols is getting involved. Brian Robinson has hit a wall to close out his sophomore season, and it just really has been leading to more opportunities for everyone else in this backfield for Washington. So I would prefer to play Saquon and Eckler. They're going to be my 2 backs if I'm recommending backs here. And I think Eckler may be a bit under-owned relative to other players that are trying to target James Cook.
He may not be able to feel his fingers today because of the cold, but his brain is still working just fine. Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. Before we let you run, Tyler, you involved in the DFS space this week, or what's the plan for that for you?
I believe Armando will be writing another article for us on Friday. Friday or Saturday it'll be out. Both games are on Sunday this weekend, so I'm not sure the publication date of that, but yeah, I'll be around in the chat rooms for sure over on Discord for both DFS, betting, seasonal. Feel free to tag me with any questions you guys may have. Just please prompt the question with what type of format you're playing in, one and done, any type of league, DFS, whatever it is, because context matters in these types of things. And we said it back before the wildcard round started. Read the rules of your postseason contest because it matters significantly. That also helps when it comes to questions being answered by us. So happy to answer any questions you guys have, though, but feel free to tag me for that.
You can always send a note to support@fantasyguru.com, support@fantasyguru.com to sign up. You can click the subscribe tab in the top right corner and sign up for the football package, the baseball package, the MVP package, which is basically everything but football and baseball. All of that available for you. You can get involved still and get Tyler's bets, get the staff's bets, get the staff's reviews, breakdowns, previews of the games, action, all of that. We're there to help you at fantasyguru.com. Tyler, thanks for your help this week. I hope the weather improves for you. I hope it warms up a little bit. Thanks for taking the time with us today, and we'll talk to you in a week.
Yep, thank you for having me, and good luck everyone this week. Should be a fun one.
He's Tyler Buecher. I'm Ray Flowers. He'll be back with us in a week, as I just stated, about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. That's when our guests generally join us here on the show. On Friday tomorrow, we'll be visiting with Russell Clay. First half hour baseball, last half hour with Russell Clay and with all of you. For Tyler, I'm Ray. Thanks for watching Fantasy Sports Daily Day. We'll see you again tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern, powered by fantasyguru.com.